Dead in the middle of little did we know that we riddles a middleman who didn't do diddly. If you get that reference, you get that reference. If not, you don't. Buongiorno, I'm Dallas, and I will never understand white filmmakers' desires to throw racial slurs into their movies for no narrative purpose.
I'm Colin, and I would like a personal apology from Francis Ford Coppola for making, turns out, multiple 3-hour movies. Please don't do that. Please.
I feel like you've only seen one of them, right? Like, why would you need an apology for the others?
Because I feel like he could have chosen to make the second one shorter. He said, you know what? Let's make it a half hour longer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either until a few minutes ago, but I'm mad about it.
You would be. Anyway, welcome to the Creative Differences Podcast, your one-stop shop for movie reviews, Throwback Thursdays, Fancast Fridays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the number of other pop culture related items. Today we're talking about The Godfather. Demi said she won't be in this episode. I think she's lying, but we'll see. And Gabby is off somewhere gobbling some gabagool, so she's not here either. Before we get
Jesus
in,
Christ.
hey, we gotta be on brand. Before we get into this episode, please like, share, and subscribe, or your bada bing will be bada boomed. And also, it's Thursday. You know what that means. Maybe you don't. If you're new to this, we do spoilers for Throwback Thursday. So in case you haven't seen The Godfather in the last 50 years, spoiler alert. It's 50 years old. You had time. Shout out to Nick for suggesting this episode. I did not remember that this movie was turning 50 years old, so thank you for remembering that. We know a lot of people named Nick, but you know who you are.
I need to make a disclaimer before this
Yes.
episode starts. First disclaimer, if you are a film nerd, I'm so sorry for what these gentlemen are about to do.
Bada
Second of
bing!
all, the opinions expressed today on this episode that are not expressed by me do not represent me whatsoever.
Yes. In case you listen to this podcast and you hear me and Colin talk and you think that must be what Demi thinks, then you don't know how this podcast works. But also, that's not the case. So, stop thinking that because it makes no sense. All right, let's get into The Godfather. Colin,
Me.
do you remember your first time watching The Godfather?
I do vividly. It was about 17 hours ago, I think we started.
I was there for that. I remember your first time
You
watching
were.
Godfather. It was quite a time.
It was last night.
It was great.
Man. Whew. This is an interesting movie because the last Throwback Thursday we recorded was a shorter movie,
Mhm.
but I found it boring.
Right.
This movie, I would argue, wasn't boring, except for certain parts. The first half hour come on. But there were several points in this movie where I kept thinking, okay, you could have ended it there. You could have ended it there. No, there, no. Okay. I guess this is an epic in some sense, and
It's 3 hours.
boy howdy, it tries to justify that.
Yes. My first time. Let's talk about it. It was in high school. I saw this movie for the first time in high school. It probably took like a week because this movie is longer than a black church service. But I do remember liking the movie, and I haven't watched
I
it
have a
since.
quick question.
What's up?
In regards to watching it in high school.
Mhm.
Did you have block schedule?
Remind me what that is.
So block schedule is what we had was on all the days that were not Monday, we had like blocks of I think 3 classes of 2 hours long each.
Okay.
As opposed to Monday where we had all of our classes in
Right.
like 45-minute chunks or whatever it was.
That sounds familiar. Maybe that was the thing I did in middle school. I don't remember if I was doing it in high school. I don't think so. I don't know. I should remember. It wasn't that long ago, but
I'm just wondering in terms of like when you're watching a 3-hour movie, because
Right.
if you have block schedule, it's like you can watch it in 2 days. But if you have not, it's gonna take you a week, yeah.
Exactly, because the classes are like 50 minutes,
Mhm.
and then you got to talk. Blah blah blah. Bada bing, bada boom. Here's the movie. Anyway, speaking of the movie, it is directed by Nicolas Cage's uncle, who also made. No, I'm just kidding. Francis Ford Coppola, who is Nicolas Cage's uncle. He made Apocalypse Now, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Jack, the movie with Robin Williams being old but also young. It was written by Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, who wrote Superman 1 and 2 and the other Godfather movies.
He's also the writer of the novel The Godfather that this movie is based off of.
Yes, which is why when you start the movie, it says Mario Puzo is the Godfather.
He wrote Superman movies?
Yeah.
Okay, range. Respect it.
Yeah, all kinds of powerful white men. Speaking of, the movie stars Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Richard Castellano, Robert Duvall, and a bunch of other white people. Colin,
Me.
I think this movie is where Greta Gerwig got her ideas about diversity in casting. The
I mean, technically, there are people of different shades.
There are people of different shades, and there are some black slaves at the guy's house who has the horse. There are no people of color with names, but like the closest the movie really comes to diversity is Sonny talking about the quote niggers in Harlem in their Cadillacs, and that's troubling. But I haven't got to the summary yet. The IMDb summary states the aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty in post-war New York City transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant youngest son. Yes, that is part of the movie.
That is fascinating because I wouldn't. Okay, I mean, spoilers for a 50-year-old movie. Who
Right.
cares at some point? But don't think I would put that in the summary.
It's kind of the end of the movie. Like not the end, but it's toward the end. And the movie takes place over like 10 years.
I mean, it
so
kind of isn't, but it's a gradual thing.
it is a gradual thing, but that doesn't start for like the first 2 hours of the movie.
Oh, sure.
So, I would say Italians kill each other because that happens all through the movie.
Yes,
Yes,
that.
right.
Oh my god, that sums it up
It
extremely
does.
well.
Let's continue summing it up. The story. Oh, I didn't say my initial thoughts. I like this movie. It's too long, but I do like it. It's good. I don't think it's like, oh, it's the best movie ever. Film cinema. This is the pinnacle of cinema 50 years ago. We haven't done anything better in 5 decades. But it's good. It's good. Let's talk about the story, and then I'm gonna circle back to that soapbox later.
Okay.
As far as crime stories go, it's very good. Like you said, it's not boring. It's too long.
No.
There's too much of everything. It's not a boring movie. Like the dialogue is good. They tell the story well. Things make sense for the most part. Obviously, with us, we can poke fun at any movie, but it's not like I'm watching this movie and just thinking, well, this is all stupid.
No, yeah, I think it works. It's interesting because I was expecting a lot more violence just
Fair.
based on what I know of the movie, but it didn't need it. And what violence was there was certainly effective.
Yeah, they use
Like,
it.
oh, definitely. I get a little lost in how many different characters there are.
There's so many.
There's so many, and they introduce new ones as the movie goes on. But yeah, I feel like, the core group of like the main family is really compelling and their story is really interesting. So I feel like in that regard, it does a good job.
Colin and I agree. This family is compelling in some good ways and some bad ways. But
Hmm.
I'm just so glad we watched this movie together because
Oh, me too. I don't think I would have made it through if I hadn't watched it with you.
it's so long. And when you're watching a movie with a friend with the intention of let's laugh at stuff that annoys us, the annoying stuff gets funny instead of annoying.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
and the funny stuff it's even funnier. Like we were saying, since we decided to do this episode, we've been shouting Italian sounding nonsense at each other. Like
Yeah.
gabagool. So when we're 10 minutes into the movie and guys like, I got the gabagool, then we can cheer and have our fun time. But then also, there's a wedding. This movie starts at a wedding. It's too long. They're intercutting with interesting things. Like, yo, these dudes beat up my daughter. I need you to off these niggas real quick. He's like, nah, I can't do that. But, I may rough them up a little bit for you because it's the day of my daughter's wedding. And we cut outside to the wedding. So much is going on. Like, yeah, Michael's talking to Diane Keaton. He's snitching. Michael, rein it in. But then we keep seeing different people sing at the wedding. Like it cuts to an old man is singing. Now an old woman is singing. And then this Dino Spumoni ass nigga shows up and he's an actual singer. So everyone goes crazy. And now it's an actual concert.
Not Dino Spumoni.
Dino Spumoni. I was so
Not
glad.
the Dino
Spumoni.
Spumoni
I
reference.
was so
Oh
glad to
my
be able to use that reference. I was like,
God.
oh my God. I was like, what's a good rap? Dino Spumoni. I wish I could remember
Didn't
what
he
songs
turn
he sang.
out to be a dick in that episode too?
He's in a couple of episodes, but yeah, he was kind of a jaded, cynical. Shout out to Dino Spumoni. If you know, you know. But yeah, so Dino Spumoni shows up, and it's just longer and more singing and more annoying. But with Colin, it became a game of every time they cut to another person singing, I'm going to verbally express my outrage. And they did it like 4 times. It was a whole ass Coachella set, stuff like that. Like I said, the movie's too long, and it didn't need to be this long. But the stuff that mattered, I'm here for. I'm here for talking to the 5 families and beating up the dude who's beating up your sister because what a dumb thing to do, marry a mob daughter and cheat on her and abuse her. Like you have to be the dumbest person in the world.
Right? Like, how do you think that's gonna go?
Yeah, I'm here for all the negotiations. I'm here for I talked to Barzini. But so I enjoy the story. Oh, Colin, I watched that line 10 times today. I love it so much.
It's so good because it sounds like to me, it sounds halfway through like he transformed into like Harrison Ford.
The amount of other actors people have said, like in the comments, people are like, James Earl Jones was in The Godfather. ADR at its finest. Yeah, story wise, it's good. It's good. It's too much story, but it's a good story. It's like the thing I said about the Batman. I'm not gonna eat 4 meals just because the food is good. And in this case, I'm not gonna eat a plate of gabagool, a plate of prosciutto, a plate of capicola. I don't know. I don't know all the Italian foods.
Capicola is gabagool.
It is. I don't know. I ran out of Italian foods very fast. Spaghetti.
There we go.
I wish there was less racism in the movie.
Yeah, it's. I think the problem with the racism is that it wasn't part of the story. So it's like, why did you
Right.
need
Like,
them to be racist?
it's the whole thing people are talking about with Django. Like, Tarantino couldn't wait to make a movie where he felt justified in using 200 N words. But in his other movies and in this one, this movie, we'll move to characters in a second. But this movie has one of the most jarring scene transitions of all time. I can't remember what the scene is before, but it cuts to them at dinner, and Sonny's just like, the niggers in Harlem. I'm like, yo, what happened? What is this conversation that we just jumped into? But yeah, that was insane. Francis, relax. But let's talk about characters.
Okay, let's talk about characters.
Some white men, because there's not enough of that in cinema. Yeah,
I mean, we should probably start with Vito, I guess,
makes sense. You know.
since he's the guy.
He's a guy. Look at him as my boy. Good performances all around. I'll say that first. Not everybody gets as much to do because there's 80,000 characters in this movie. But all the main guys I rock with. Vito's cool. I actually really like Vito as a Don because he's not noble, but you know, he has a code.
Right. I mean, that was something I was thinking about in that first scene when
Mhm.
the guy's like, "Hey, I want you to kill those dudes," and he's like, "No, that's not my bag. I don't really do that." And like
Right.
that was surprising because I was expecting him to be like, "Cool, they're dead," you know. And then later on, after everything happens with Sonny, he's like, "You know what? I could try to get vengeance, but I'm not gonna. And I promise I'm not gonna."
Yeah.
And Michael, like his presence and power and legacy was enough that Michael had to wait until after he died.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you can tell that he's got like his own way of doing things and like it has its own power. Like people pay attention to that.
Yeah, I respect that. He's like, you know, and when he tells us, like, I want justice, like, well, that's not justice. Your daughter's still alive. So, like, the punishment doesn't match the crime if I kill these guys. And he doesn't want to get into drugs because, you know, that destroys lives and blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, I'll let you gamble all your money away. But drugs, not my bag. So, shout out to Vito. And he got shot in the street and took it like a G. Like, to quote the late, great Tupac, 5 shots couldn't drop me. I took it and smiled. Like, that's Vito. He got popped on in broad daylight just trying to buy some fruit and ate that at an old age. And Fredo's
Yeah.
soft ass was like, "Oh, Fredo sucks," and it's not his fault. It's like I was trying to remember the name of the dude from West Side Story who's softer than a bag of marshmallows. John, baby John,
Baby John, I
baby
think.
John. Thank you. Okay, and this like Fredo is their baby John. Like he shouldn't be here. You're part of the family. Like literally, you're a son. But he's like, Papa, I don't wanna. And then they shoot, and he's like bobbling the gun like he has Orville Redenbacher on his fingers. And it's like, dude, why are you here? Go home. Why are you driving your dad around?
Yeah, that feels like it feels like exactly. It's not his fault. It's like, why is anyone else putting you in any position
Right. You should be at
where you have
home
to do stuff? Like
reading
just
whatever people did
go
in the 40s.
the Michael route at the start of the movie and just be like, I'm not in this.
Right. And that's the thing is that Michael has stuff going on though. He's like, he went to college, he went to the military. Fredo ain't doing nothing. So you might as well
Nope.
drive dad around. And he goes to Vegas and he wants to be a big shot. Like, you know, I'm banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time. I know that's not his line, but it's said about him.
Yeah.
And he's like, Michael, you can't disrespect this guy. He talked to Barzini. Yeah, Fredo sucks. I love Tom Hagen. Tom Hagen is the best character for me.
Hmm.
He's so calm and smart, and everything he says is the voice of reason. Like, yo, Sonny, we can't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Dad wouldn't want us to do that. He's talking to the horse nigga, Waltz. And he's like, yo, I'm just trying, let's make this work, man. The guy's like, he'll never be in my movie. Racial slur, racial slur, racial slur. He said so many racial slurs to him. And he was like, I'm German and Irish. And then he switched it up and said German and Irish racial slurs at him. I was like, yo, this guy sucks. And he has slaves. But also, Colin, I got to show you, there's a cracked after hours video where they talk about like implied scenes in classic movies, and they're
Mm.
talking about the idea, like the scenario of Hagen cutting off a horse's head and then maneuvering
Yeah.
around that estate with a
Right?
horse head that weighs about 120 pounds and slipping it into that guy's bed and not waking him
And
up.
it's
I'm just
also
like,
a bloody horse head on
it's
top of
bleeding the
Yeah,
that.
so
whole
it's
time.
dripping
It's
everywhere,
dripping everywhere. He
probably.
does all of this. Personally, I believe he would hire someone to do it, but also he was in LA. But they probably got goons in LA. Like,
I think they do.
if Jeffrey from Bel Air has goons in Philly and he's a British man who lives in Bel Air, like, they can have goons in LA. But it's funnier to me to think that Tom Hagen was just calmly, like, he does everything calm. So he's just like calmly sawing off the horse head, slinging it over his shoulder, blood dripping everywhere, and just like tiptoeing in the dude's room and shoving it, man. But I hate that scene because I like animals.
Yeah.
But Tom is dope.
It's interesting because, like, I feel like Michael and Sonny are really interesting together because, like, Sonny's the one who's like, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna go beat that guy up. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go shoot people. I'm just gonna go do it. And it's like, on the one hand, you can't always fly off the handle, but on the other hand, sometimes you do need to go beat up your brother-in-law because he's the worst. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but then you have Michael. Like, what stands out for me is this scene at the hospital when Michael has Enzo like pretend to be part of the family
Mhm.
and like that actually works. Like, oh, it makes them think there are more of us. Like, it just, oh, that was so cool.
Yeah, Michael's very smart. He's the college boy. He has the violent streak of Sonny. Like, he's capable of violence, but he's smart about it. He's not gonna
Yeah,
just run through the streets, guns blazing. So I came in, I started blasting. He's not gonna do that. He's gonna
it's
plan
interesting
something.
because something I didn't think about with him is you said it seemed like he did military stuff, right?
Yeah, I think he was he was a Marine, I wanna say.
But he seemed uncomfortable handling guns
Mm,
because there was that whole thing with I want to call him Credenza, and that's not his name.
it's close enough.
Uh, that guy,
Yeah.
Clemenza, I think,
Clementine.
or something. The guy who had to show him how to shoot the gun.
Italian number 6.
So it's interesting that he was a Marine, but he's just not really that comfortable with guns, it seems like, until he has a point where it's like, you know what? I got to shoot these two guys. I'm going to do it.
And even then, he's not comfortable doing it.
No.
And he doesn't really do it perfectly. Like they say, 2 shots in the head. He shoots the worst cop in the world in the neck. And that cop, like, he shoots the other guy first, and the cop just sits there. It's like, yo, you're a police officer. Bare minimum, you should be standing up right now. But yeah, Michael is an interesting character. And I'm sure that the other movies dive into his Godfatherness. I haven't seen him. But I did like his gradual. He starts off just snitching to Diane Keaton, like, oh yeah, you never met my family before, but let me tell you about the time that my dad almost blew a nigga's brains out over a music contract. She's like, really? Your dad did that? It's like, yo, Diane, you need to never see this man again. And Michael, stop snitching. What are you doing? Everyone at this wedding is a criminal, and you're snitching on all of them. God, he's like Tekashi 6ix9ine. And I liked him after that because he stopped being stupid. Until he ran away to Italy and married the first broad he saw while Diane Keaton is waiting for him in America.
Yeah, that
Like, dog,
was a decision that you made, and I don't understand why you made it. Because, like, what?
everything about that, like they first meet and they're doing the Twilight stares at each other. And it's like, neither of them looks happy. They don't look like, oh, I just saw someone attractive. He's like, oh, who's this woman? I want to wear her flesh. And she's like, why is this dude staring at me like this? She doesn't really smile until he's teaching her how to drive. Who knows how much later?
Well, yeah, because once she knows how to drive, she can get away.
That's true. She was trying to escape. Oh, that
I
whole
will say
realm
that
went too
that
wild.
part confused me. However, going to look it up, it is a 2-year. He is gone for 2 years, so they probably actually
Yeah.
knew each other for a long time.
Yeah, the
That
movie does take,
is
like, they do time gaps.
They do, yeah. It works, but it is also kind of confusing sometimes to realize how much time has passed.
Yeah. That's one thing I was saying when we were watching it is like, there's stuff in here that I think maybe was more important than some of the stuff that you actually put in the movie. Like, I don't need to see all of Dino Spumoni's set list at the wedding, but Michael and Diane Keaton having 2 kids seems kind of important. Like, he comes back there in the car and there's a kid on his lap, and I'm like, whose child is this? And then he's talking to, I think, Vito, and he's like, your kids and your wife. I'm like, kids? How long has this nigga been gone? It's just a lot. It's just a lot. But, you can manage your time however you want when you're writing the movie. And maybe the book does that. Maybe the book is just like, hey, 2 years later, he dropped a baby in Diane Keaton after his wife got blown to smithereens. And he just left and was like, hey, Diane, you up? Like, bro.
Well, no, he came back for a year and
Oh,
then
right. He hadn't seen her in a year. Michael is nasty. That nigga's dirty.
In the
But
books, apparently, he gets revenge for what happened to his wife in Italy.
I sure hope he does. You can just blow up my wife and everything is all good. We should have seen that. But yeah,
Yep.
what characters did we miss? I think we got all the important ones. Carlo
I think so.
sucks. He's the worst person in the movie and is an idiot.
Oh yeah.
I think we got all the main. Wait, let's talk about all the characters of color, and we're done. All right. So, visuals and sound.
This okay, so I think I've noticed something.
Oh, hold on,
And
Colin.
I
One thing. Wah, 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 wah. All right. I need to do that for you.
I wish you hadn't.
Yo, wait, hold on. I just want to say that song would come up and it would just trigger memories from cleaning
Yes.
bathrooms at ArcLight.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my god,
I was
it
transported
was
back to
upsetting.
minimum wage.
Anyway, like, see, I don't want to watch Endgame again, but I want to watch Endgame again because I noticed something with both this movie and with the Batman, which is they had like one particular motif, and that goes throughout the entire movie.
Hmm.
And so if you, like me, get tired of what Dallas just did,
Yeah.
too bad. I mean, I think, you know, it works. It's a cool score, but like,
Yeah.
dog, did you have to use it so much?
At least it's not bad. First off, your movie's 3 hours and that's your main theme. You're gonna hear it a lot. But I'm glad that it's actually good music. Like it's one of the most iconic scores in the world. And it works. I can't get it out of my head. And I was doing that noise to Colin for the rest of the night after we watched the movie.
Mhm.
Much to his dismay.
There was one shot that I think you pointed out that I hadn't noticed until you said something, but I think it's Michael.
Mm-hmm.
It might be near the end of the movie.
Yes.
I think it actually is right at the end of the movie when he's talking to Carlo, where like they have half his face in shadow and half his face in light. And like
Yeah.
that's sort of simple symbolism, but it works. Like it's cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a really cool shot. And for the most part, this movie looks like a movie to me. But certain stuff, I was like, that's really dope. And like you said, it's a simple one, but also 50 years ago, maybe not everybody was rocking like that. So Francis Ford Coppola was like, let me do some shadows real quick.
Damn. All right, hold on. Now I gotta put out an opinion of mine. I want to give a shout out to cinematographer Gordon Willis because his use of light and shadow is so heavily influential in film because of how dark and how deep his shadows are and the usages of them are in this film.
It was a deep shadow.
Yeah, the usage of light and contrast and shadows is so well done in this film, and it's one of the reasons why it is visually so influential. So I do want to mention that.
Yes, that's very on brand for you. But yeah, like Colin said, I really like that shot, that scene. He's like, yo, Carlo, I know you did it, bro. Just say you did it. Just say you did it. I'm not going to kill you. I promise. You'll be fine. I'm going to let you leave, and you will believe that because you are an idiot. And they killed this nigga in the car.
Actually, hold on. I just discovered that the cinematographer of this movie was called the Prince of Darkness
Oh boy.
Oh,
because of the
that's
usage of shadows.
If I was a cinematographer, that'd be a pretty dope nickname. Like, yo, I'm out here making darkness with my movies. I'm the Prince of Darkness. Did he do horror movies? I feel like he should do horror movies. You say his name is Gordon Willis?
Yes, his name is Gordon Willis.
Shout out to
Oh,
Gordon
he did
Willis.
All the President's Men. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I imagine that movie has to have some shadowy figures, like Deep Throat.
Yeah, there's a lot of shadow in that movie.
Which is funny because looking at Colin's camera, he looks like he's shrouded in shadow because of the light behind him.
Yeah, no, he was called the Prince of Darkness for using shadows to reflect the souls of his morally conflicted characters.
All right. Colin, are you feeling morally conflicted right now?
see, what's unfortunate is that I want to get like a half and half type of thing, but I'm either completely in light or completely in shadow, so it
Yeah.
really just
You're not
doesn't.
really set up for
Yeah.
that. But it's cool. We know that you're morally gray. Colin, what's your favorite thing about the movie?
I feel like my favorite thing about the movie is probably just Michael.
Fair.
Just like how he changes over the course of it because it feels like I mean, time passes, right? But I don't know. I like the concept of his character of like being drawn into the family business kind of whether you want to or not. Like there comes a point where it's like so much has happened that I have to just do this
Yeah.
or I feel like I have to just do this, you know? And I like that he's actually like capable too. He's not just like, okay, I'll just hang out, I'll just try this. But like, no, he can actually get stuff done too.
Yeah, I respect all of that.
Like by the time we get to the end of the movie and he's in charge of the family, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, definitely fits.
Whereas I wouldn't have guessed that starting out.
I don't know what my favorite thing about the movie is. I'm not just gonna take yours. I'll say Irish dude, Tom Hagen. He's just so cool. He's cool about everything. He's calm. He's collected. I don't think he says anything racist, which is nice. Yeah, I like that guy. Do 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 do. So, oh, that was the Mario. I didn't even realize. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's
You didn't know what you were doing?
I
Oh,
randomly do that sometimes, like Mario. What do you say? Probably because this movie's. I'm feeling so
oh
Italian
no.
right now. It's a me.
Yeah.
Normally, there's a segment like, "What are you expecting from the next movie?" Blah 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 blah. This movie's 50 years old. We don't have to do that. So, what I want to do is briefly talk about what we were talking about yesterday, Colin. This idea when it comes to a lot of art, not just movies, but like music as well, that the best ever is always like it
In
has
the
to be
past?
a certain level of old. And I get that,
Mm.
like, if I walked out of Blind Spotting in 2018, it was like, that's the best movie ever made, people would have looked at me crazy because, like, yo, the movie just came out, relax. But I feel like people hold really tight to things.
Well, it's interesting because when you bring that up, my first thought is the Beatles.
Fair. Yeah. Like I said, music too.
Yeah, who are held up as the greatest band of all time. And I think what I find confusing about that is the way that it starts to become objective. That like
Me too.
you have to appreciate the Beatles. I don't think the Beatles are that great. They have some of their songs that I think are cool, but I don't choose to listen to them ever on my own time. And that's fine. Like I don't think they're not good. I don't think they're not bad. I don't they just don't appeal to me. And I think it's really interesting that when you get something like the Beatles or the Godfather, something that is held up as like a pinnacle, it's assumed that it must be a pinnacle.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder in the 70s, there had to be a point in time when people were just like, oh, yeah, that's a really cool movie. But I don't know when it goes from, yeah, it's pretty dope to this is the best thing we've ever seen. I don't even think that we can get to a point when we'll see that for more modern things
Mm.
because in 50 years, I don't think people are going to be saying like, what movie won Best Picture? I'm not going to say Green Book. What's a movie that won Best Picture recently?
Moonlight.
Moonlight. Yeah, I don't think people will be like, "Oh, Moonlight's the best movie ever," because people are still going to be saying it's the freaking Godfather. So it's like I don't know when
Yeah.
this shift happened, and it's a thing with music too. Older people listen to music and they're like, "Nah, the best music ever was the '80s rappers," and it's like the Donald Glover joke. Like, I went to the hat store and I got myself a hat. Like, bro, it's not the best music ever. You're just old, but it's also a thing that's like objective is a term to use, but widely considered to be the best.
Mhm.
If everyone agrees that this movie's good, that's cool. But it's just I wonder how these things kind of just become accepted into like the general hive mind.
Well, and that's what's so interesting because it also sometimes takes time. Like I was looking up part 2 and part 3 of this series just to see how long they were.
Hmm.
Part 2 and part 3 are both with part 1 is they're in some recognized as like one of those, significant contributions to art and culture and such.
Hmm.
But, apparently part 2 when it came out, it was kind of received like, "Eh, okay, cool, cool,
Mm,
cool, cool." And then over time it became like on the same level as the first one.
right.
And so I don't it's just interesting that that can happen over time and it's like I guess I wonder why like what happens? Is it that because critics reevaluate it or is it audiences or is it both? And then why does it matter what other people think ultimately? I don't know.
Yeah, because ultimately, this is a movie. What I don't like is that we get to a point when certain opinions start to be solidified as facts to a lot of people.
Mm,
And it's like, guys, yeah, it's cool. But like, you don't have to go at people if they're like, oh yeah, you don't like the blah blah blah. Like there's a scene in Family Guy when they're all presumably about to die. They obviously don't, but they start admitting things to each other. And Peter says, I didn't care for the Godfather. And the whole family starts screaming on him. And it's just like, I don't know. It's interesting the way that people look at movies and such. Because like it's been 50 years. You think people haven't gotten better at making things? But maybe some people
nah.
don't. It's fine.
Well, it's interesting because in some ways, I think that, like an argument that's made with music a lot is how many people today are still playing their own instruments as opposed to using a computer to make all the music,
Mm.
yada yada. So the instrumentation, and there's some artistry in that may or may not be being lost over time. And I feel like there's not a similar argument with movies, though there could be, because there are the people who are like, no, things should be practical when they
Yeah,
can
there's
be. So
that.
there is some of
It's
that,
pretty
I
similar.
guess. Mm.
Because you have people who are like, this movie's not good because they use CGI. It's like, yo, relax. Calm down. You'll be okay. The CGI monster's not going to eat you in your sleep. I don't know what you're afraid of. But yeah, that same kind of snobbery is like in both fields. But yeah, best movie ever. Final thoughts on The Godfather?
Final thoughts are, it's not my bag, but
Mm.
I see why this is one where I can definitely see what there is to like about it.
Right.
Like I can see I had a good time watching it with you. I think if I'd watched it by myself, I wouldn't have had as good a time, but not a bad time. Like it's a solid movie.
Yeah, it's dope. It's a good movie. It's too long. It's too much movie, but it's good. Everybody relax about it. All right, moving on to different opinions, the new segment where we talk about different opinions from strangers on the internet. Shout out to strangers on the internet. All right, this comment is from YouTube on episode 167, Fancast Friday, Batman's Rogue Gallery Part 1. Comment is from Banjo Isis. Great name, unless you're talking about the bad ISIS. And the comment says, Fancast David Tennant as the Riddler. Colin, wasn't that your Riddler?
Yeah, I think I wasn't there for part 1,
Yeah.
but yes, I think that was my Riddler. So, shout out to you, Banjo Isis. We're on the same wavelength.
I feel it. That also is, like I said to you, a really dope cast for the Riddler. David Tennant is dope.
Yeah.
Thanks for commenting, Banjo Isis. We don't have any other comments because it's quiet for us out here. But yeah, if you want us to talk to you, talk to us. That's how that works. Discussion. Thank you, audience, for listening to all of that. Bada binging and bada booming. To be honest, I think we weren't as ridiculous as I anticipated.
I'm going to be honest. You
No.
guys were not nearly as ridiculous as I thought you were going to be. So the
Like-
disclaimer that I gave at the beginning feels useless.
I knew we weren't just going to get in here to be like, hey, gabagool, prosciutto. Like, as much as we joked about doing that for half an hour, like that's not a podcast. For the audience who doesn't know, we were just telling Demi that all we were going to do is shout Italian sounding "It's a me" at each other.
This is why, I mean, we've talked about doing commentaries, and honestly,
We should.
this is a reason to do, because like that was what that commentary was.
Yeah, and
It was
we
3 hours.
could throw in the "ooh, that's a really cool shot" and stuff like that. Like that's how I talk when I watch movies. My film school brain does turn on like, oh, that's a really dope shot. I really like that. But also, I like to laugh at silly things and make things silly when they're not. Man, Colin laughed at "Look How They Massacred My Boy." Colin is a demon.
Hey, you can't just say that without context.
It happened. You did it.
Yes, but I was laughing because of a TikTok I had seen that was kind of making fun of that line. So I wasn't just laughing like, oh, haha, his son is dead. That's funny.
That's what it
I'm
looked
not
like to
that
me.
heartless. No, it didn't.
Shout out to, I don't know who that is on TikTok, but shout out to the TikToker who does the Marge Simpson. Look how they massacred my boy. It's so weird and so ridiculous, but I love it.
Look at how they massacred my boy.
Oh, we're terrible. Thank you, Crown Digital, Brandon, and Io for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To me, thank you for editing and putting us on YouTube and, just vibing with us. I know you were worried that we were just going to scream Italian meats at each other, but we didn't. We didn't.
I just didn't want you to get on air and talk about the movie that, most film people consider the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
And just blast it for an entire half hour.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I was never going to come in here and be like, oh, this movie's trash, because it's not. I really like the movie. But part of me wanted to do that, just make jokes about it, just to anger the people who would get angry.
The Criterion crowd?
Yeah. The it's not cinema crowd. Thank you, Colin, for watching The Godfather with me, because that made it so much more fun.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I mean, not anytime. Don't try to make me watch these 3-hour movies again, but like
just gonna,
anytime.
Yeah. We're going to take a break from this. Audience, what'd you think of The Godfather? Is it the best movie ever? Can you think of any people of color with names in the movie? If so, let us know in the comments or hit us on Twitter at y'all_different. What's up, Colin?
I swear there was a black dude who got a name.
There were black dudes working with the horse.
No. And one of them had a name.
Oh, really?
Didn't he? The guy who was working with the horse?
I'll be honest, Colin, if you're going to try to look that up right now, we don't have time. There's too many people in this movie.
You're right.
And you're not going to find it. But yeah, hit us on Twitter at y'all_different, Instagram and Tumblr at Creative Differences Podcast, or Facebook.com/Creative Differences PC. If you want to yell at me for not showing the proper reverence to this old ass movie, find me on Twitter and or Instagram at the King named Simba.
You can find me. Sorry, I was looking stuff up. You can find me on Twitter at Duck McGuck.
And you can find Gabby on Twitter at Gobble That Gabagool. She's not gonna like that. Maybe she will. It's pretty funny. Anyway, it's been different. Bye. How you say bye? Arrivederci? Ciao?
I don't know.
Ciao. Ciao bella. I don't have a tag. Colin, shout something Italian.
Did you know
Oh, what we got?
that they used a real horse's head for that scene?
I did know that. I forgot that, and then you made me remember that. So now I regret doing this with you.
I'm sorry.
Film was a mistake.